Hey everyone, it's Matt C. And remember having friends in the comic book industry, not just allies. So, I've been thinking a lot about this allies term, and it's something that I think this is going to seem like an obvious sort of thing at first, and then I'm kind of going to try and drill it down into something relatively uh, something that I'm contributing that may not be said as much as it should be. There's been a misunderstanding. Uh, I think a lot of us saw this kind of came to this realization back in 2015, 2016 in the U.S. Political climate, but really, I guess, kind of globally, that's been an issue. Is that if your allies, if you define ally as the person who agrees with you on everything, and it has to be everything, it can't just be one particular topic. Because if you just agree on the issue at hand and you disagree on another issue, that's going to come back to that's going to make you an enemy once that topic becomes relevant. Uh, so that's basically one one reason why we realized we've been misdefining the term ally. We've been taking people's personal spaces, their thoughts, their ideas, their opinions, their worldviews and beliefs. Uh, that personal space has been appropriated to be the place of the public square. It's the way that personal space is how you're valued in the marketplace. It's how your allegiances are determined. It's how you negotiate your your um, your your place kind of in society, especially if you're selling narratives, which is what comic book creators do. If you're in the business of creating stories that are trying to impact the world for the better, and you're trying to maybe comment on the world, which is what most storytellers are doing, maybe critiquing, maybe picking out some things that you like, maybe some things you don't, and kind of portraying like an alternative for people, just kind of a what if scenario that people can kind of think through. That's what fiction does, and that's what comic books have always done. And uh, because so we've taken the personal space, we've made it public, we've made it a marketing asset, and social media is the number one cause of this. It kind of it made personal life public, and people figured out how to monetize that, and which is just kind of natural once that incentive is there, and that's kind of broken things down, which I think most people have figured that one out. It's we could have had a nice decentralized diverse community in the comic book industry at least, but we could have done that the easy way. We could have done that voluntarily by maintaining a boundary between the personal and the public space, and forming allegiances a different way and friendships a different way. But we chose not to, so we got to learn the hard way. So the way we should have been doing it, and the way it has been done in the past, before social media was a thing, was building allegiances not based on whether or not you agree with everyone on everything, but whether or not you're helping to promote the peace and prosperity of that community. That's a big deal. So, um, how do I say this? So basically, I one of the things that helped me realize this was I have a lot of opinions, and I have a lot of personal, very strongly held personal beliefs, and I have worldviews. Uh, and oh man, how how disgusting do I sound right now? But I'm a human being, and I have opinions, right? And I had to come to the realization that the best way to convince someone that I'm right and they're wrong is to guarantee their safety to disagree, to guarantee that public space that they have a right to it as much as I do, and to secure that and to fight for it, to fight for their right to live their entire lives in disagreement with me, in opposition to me, uh, in terms of worldview. Uh, that's how my mind's been changed on a whole. I mean, I don't know if there's any worldview that I still have that, um, from childhood at least. I've changed my mind on all kinds of things. Sometimes I feel like that the biggest thing that defines an adult from a child is whether or not the majority of things that you now hold as an adult are have been kind of reshaped and changed and evolved voluntarily since your childhood. I think that's kind of one of the markers. So, uh, if we think of our allies as who is guaranteeing the right to disagree, which is a fundamentally liberal value, quintessentially liberal. You can't be authoritarian and liberal, can you? That's been something that's kind of taught me a thing or two. And if my goal is to convince people of my opinion as opposed to theirs, uh, and I know by history, by um, my own life, and looking at other people's lives, that people change their mind when they feel free to interrogate my own opinions as much as they wish and say anything they want about them, and to kind of freely investigate the claims that I make and then find out if they hold up or not, rather than just being afraid and intimidated into silence. Uh, if that's the approach I need to have about my most core, cherished values, then that's the sort of approach, that's the principle I need to take with comics. That's why I ally myself not with people who agree with me, but people who are fighting for freedom. That There's a lot of people. One of my friends online is trans, and probably disagrees with, other than having a libertarian, anti-authoritarian kind of mindset, which is the whole point of being allies, as far as I'm concerned. Probably disagrees on most everything that I believe, and that doesn't bar me from being friends. Uh, that's that's kind of how things used to be. That's kind of what we grew up on, I think. At least that was what was commonly just kind of said, I guess. Maybe not a lot of people believed it, but that's kind of how people approach things in the 80s and 90s. That's kind of what the litmus test of being a liberal was whether or not you were tolerant in the midst of disagreement. That's no longer the case. That's gone from white to black, I think, in terms of what people mean by liberal, and that's from taking the private space and making it the public space, and that's due to social media, and that's due ultimately to a fundamental misunderstanding of who an ally is. Your ally can be your friend. Obviously, they're not always the same, but your ally should be someone who you're trusting to fight for your right to disagree or to agree. It's fight for your right to investigate claims on your own and to draw your own conclusions. And if you happen to draw different conclusions than your ally, they're still cool with you, because they know that you're fighting for their right to disagree with you. That's something I take pretty seriously, and maybe it's because a lot of comics creators are addicted to social media, probably honestly myself included. Maybe it has a lot to do with selling your private persona publicly as a marketing tool to sell your stories. That's a contributing factor, and I don't know. A lot of us are kind of broken, damaged people. A lot of storytellers have issues. I feel like sometimes I wonder if those who do, they do, and those who can't do, write stories about people who do, including myself. I feel like that's kind of that may be more true than not. But yeah, so that's how I determine allies. Am I determining allies based on who agrees with me on private matters? No. I have some friends like that. I have most friends who are not in agreement with me on some of the most core fundamental things that define me. But I can trust them to disagree with me as equals, as peers, and I disagree with them as equals and peers. I mean, I think that's a great sign of respect, and it's something that most of the world does and has done for a long time. I mean, you get outside of America and you discover this. People, most countries on the planet, people argue in the streets publicly, and go home as friends. That's kind of how, I think that's how humanity. That's the normative framework for society, and has been going pretty far back. And if things are broken now, it's because they've only been recently broken. It's because of some fundamental misapplications of terms like ally. And so if you want to fight for my right to disagree with you, then you're my ally. And because that's what I'm fighting for you, whether you realize it or not. I'm fighting for your right to disagree with me. So that's kind of how I'm going with things forward. That applies to Comicsgate and anti-Comicsgate, all that kind of non-normie inside baseball drama trash that's been going on since 2015 or something. That applies to the industry, the comic book industry in general, and it applies to I don't know how I approach life. So that's me. And in light of that, so I do have a comic that I'm going to be trying to crowdfund on Indiegogo. So it's called Kyrie. It's an ancient Roman adventure comic. It's been described as Indiana Jones in ancient Rome. It's got a pretty cool cast of characters, diverse and honestly in ways that are popular and ways that are unpopular right now. It's more it's worldview diverse. I think every character is representative of opposing worldviews in the culture that we have today, and because it was relevant back then too. That's the interesting thing about worldviews. These things keep cropping up. So similar debates that we had about freedom of dissension were happening in the 3rd century when the comics stories set in, and that's something that I'm intentionally exploring. I have been since it started the thing about 5 years ago, and I think it's important to try to represent those arguments as best as I can, because honestly I've held most all of those views at different points in my life, and I've been convinced out of them by free thought, by freedom to disagree and freedom to challenge. That's kind of helped me to explore each of the worldviews present in Kyrie, and to then that goes, there's authoritarian kind of approaches, there's and there's more libertarian approaches. There's more left-leaning and right-leaning characters in the story, and I've been all of those people. So I think I can validly and charitably express those worldviews, and to see them get challenged within my own story. See how they shake up. That's the sort of thing that I like to read, and that's the sort of thing that I'm creating. So anyway, so that's Kyrie. Check down in the notes at the bottom of this video. I got the pre-launch campaign is up, and I'll be pressing the button. I'm hoping to get 100 subscribers to the pre-launch campaign. I feel like that's probably a good base, and everyone who signs up gets and and buys a book, they're gonna get a free postcard with one of the issues on it, which is pretty cool. Giving those out to everyone who subscribes and then buys. If you buy on day one, you'll get a second postcard. If you don't buy on day one, but you buy on between day 1 and day 7, so the first 7 days of the campaign, you get the third postcard. And obviously day 1 is included within day 7. So if you buy it in day 1, you get 2. You get you get number 2 postcard and number 3 postcard. If you just buy on day 2, then you get just number 3. And I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to incentivize people to, if you're going to come in, it really helps the campaign if you come in on day 1. So I'm trying to give you free stuff to really reward you for that backing. And finally, if you share your confirmation number, confirmation ID, which is just like a number, it's going to say like number 36 or something. It's just the thing you get when you purchase when you do the pre-order on Indiegogo. It comes up on the page. It's pretty straightforward. If you screen capture that and then you send it out on social media and you tag me in it, and I'll register that, and then you'll get postcard number 4 when we send out the book. So long as you sign up for the pre-launch campaign, you buy on day 1, and you tweet about it, you're going to get 4 awesome postcards for free. It's included in the $20 book, or at any physical book reward. So that's fun. So look forward to that. I'm going to be coming up with more campaign incentives to sweeten the deal, just so that we can kind of front load interest right now. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to press the button until we have a minimum number of people subscribed. And so whatever you can do to kind of please subscribe, and you follow the link below to do that. Or in addition to that, if you just kind of share the word out, get the word out. As far as like analytics go, I can only do so much with sharing. I think they kind of throttle me if I share too much. But if you like what you see and you're subscribing, and I'm getting a fair amount of subscribers so far to the pre-launch campaign, if you could share that, whether that's retweeting or Instagram, Facebook, that kind of thing, that helps tremendously. That helps more than you may know. So yeah, so that's my 2 cents about allies. So anyone who's interested in an adventure story with set in a kind of historical period that I've tried to research pretty well, but with like some supernatural thriller elements and, I don't know, kooky shenanigans, some swashbuckling in book 1 in particular. There's some Lawrence of Arabia type epic journey taking that goes place as well in book 2, which will get rolled into book 1 if we can afford it. If we get enough backers, I'll be doubling the book. But yeah, if you like that sort of thing, then you are interested in me fighting for your right to disagree with me, then you're my ally. Or I'm your ally. If you're fighting for my right to disagree with you, then I guess you're my ally. I'm still working out how that works, but by default, I'm your ally, unless or until you don't want that. By that one condition, and it has nothing to do with whether or not you agree with me or not. So that's my rambling take, and that's my explanation of the reward tiers right now for the postcards. I'd love it if you subscribe, and I'll keep you up to date on the social media and on YouTube about updates related to this pre-launch campaign. So if you want to subscribe here as well, that's cool. That's going to get you content as I produce it. And yeah, I'll talk to you on the interwebs. See ya.